a real estate and finance expert that goes to bat for you every day as a consumer advocate. Your host and the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes.
And welcome to the show. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here, supporting the program, supporting the show, and all of our expert contributors. Awesome attorneys, CPAs, financial advisors, self-defense experts, so many different ways we can help you here. We want to be that consumer advocate and that number one resource for all things real estate related, finance related, all of those different wheels, spokes extending out from the center of the wheel. That's going to represent all of our expert contributors. So reach out to the show hotline. We'd love to connect with you, or online at consumerqb.com. Attorney Milly Athanason joining us today on the program. We're going to talk about holiday visitation schedules in the family law space, as well as divorce changes to the paternity statutes. There's some recent changes. Milly always gives us some great updates for things relating to that coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Now, we want to give a shout out to Brio Tuscan Grill, the Tampa restaurant partner for the Consumer Quarterback Show. Check them out over at the International Plaza Mall. Brio Tuscan Grill, excellent food, fresh from scratch, Tuscan-inspired recipes. They have happy hour Monday through Fridays with some drink specials, private dining experiences. Upstairs, you have banquets and event hall, rehearsal dinners, corporate events, weddings, and more. Say hello to the team over at Brio Tuscan Grill. Say hello to Chef Oscar Ramirez and Joseph. He's the general manager. Let him know the Real Estate Quarterback sent you, and they are going to hook you up with a free appetizer just by mentioning that you're a fan of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Now, we always like to feature our real estate listings live on air. It's part of a strategy that helps us sell our listings faster for more money, maximizing the exposure and the profit on the sale of our real estate listings. We've got a property at 7300 Southwind Drive. This one's in Pasco County. Beautiful property here. You have a private pool, screened-in lanai. Great opportunity for a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, 1726 square feet, 7300 Southwind Drive in Hudson, Florida. Perfect blend of comfort and luxury in a tranquil setting. This is nestled on a double lot. You have a double lot here. What I love about Sea Pines community is you also have access to the Gulf of Mexico via the Community Association boat ramp. You got a backyard that backs up to a coastal marsh, wildlife, and bird sanctuary in the Gulf of Mexico. Beautiful, beautiful property, 18 by 30 foot pool, and it's surrounded by a generous sized patio, covered patio. 7300 Southwind Drive in Hudson. Another one of our hot listings, 60 plus listings with the Platinum MVP team. 7300 Shoreline Boulevard is a operating motel / Airbnb. You've got 5 suites, fully furnished suites, waterfront suites, and kayaks, furnishings included. 7300 Shoreline Boulevard in Weeki Wachee. Great opportunity to own real estate here in Tampa Bay, and you can hang out with the mermaids up there in Weeki Wachee and enjoy that Florida lifestyle. This is a commercial property with a residential lot included, and 5 fully furnished waterfront suites available. Shoreline Boulevard, Weeki Wachee, and you can see all of our real estate listings at PlatinumCoastalElite.com. Check out PlatinumCoastalElite.com. That's our website where you can see all of our real estate listings. I love having attorney Milly Athanason on the show. She always gives us these great updates and keeps us informed. Milly, what's new in your world?
Well, it's been a big, hectic year with all the legislative changes, both in the areas of personal injury law and in family law, and they were pretty major changes. So it's definitely keeping us busy and on our toes. So I thought today we'd discuss one of them, which are some significant changes to the paternity statutes.
Yeah, I like that. So the paternity statutes, what's new in that space?
So typically what would happen is the way that you establish paternity before the changes is you either went to a court proceeding, which was usually a situation where the mother was coming after the father for child support, and they were asking for a judicial establishment of paternity in order to award support. And what would typically happen was that fathers would be declared the fathers legally and would be ordered to pay child support. But in a child support proceeding with the Department of Revenue, what they would do is tell you that they don't handle custodial or visitation issues. So basically the father would walk out of the courtroom, would have an obligation to pay child support, but wouldn't have any rights to visit or see the child. And then the other way that you could establish paternity was by signing the birth certificate or by signing an affidavit of paternity. However, now, with the new changes to the statute with children born out of wedlock, because obviously if they're born during the marriage, there's a presumption that paternity lies with the husband. But in an unwed parent situation or child born out of wedlock, it used to be in the statute that the mother was the natural parent and guardian, and it didn't say anything about the father. But what it says now is that the mother and father, as long as the father has established paternity, has the same rights under the statute as the mother. However, the downswing to that, I mean, that's a huge change in the law, so it's now giving the father rights. However, unfortunately, the new paternity statute doesn't define what those rights are. So it doesn't automatically say what the visitation schedule is going to be or anything like that. You still have to duke it out. But we do know that there's now a favoritism, and it's actually presumed that there's going to be 50-50 time sharing, bearing no unforeseen circumstances. So I do think this is a huge step for children born out of wedlock to ensure that they're going to have an ongoing relationship with both of their parents. And as we know, I mean, this law is kind of probably long overdue, because in society nowadays, you're seeing a lot of people that are having babies out of wedlock. They're just waiting to get married.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's more and more of that. It's definitely a trend. It's, and it's not, unfortunately in the 50s and 60s, each family, and Dennis Prager talks a lot about these, the morality of our country and secularism and where we're at now. But, families got a lot of their knowledge from the Bible back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. I mean, it was around the dinner table that these values and these morals were handed down, and, sex before marriage and outside of wedlock, etc., was strictly forbidden, and getting divorced was a major no-no, and the only way to work your problems out is stay married, in a sense of a lot of hard-line Christians. But that has changed, Millie. That has changed over the last decade or so, and it's over 50% now, the divorce rate, and it's interesting to see.
Yeah, and the younger generation, the millennials are saying, well, wait a minute, I'm just going to wait to get married. We can still have children and not be legally married. So we're seeing a lot of that. And what we find with the law is that it kind of plays catch up to societal changes. So the changes are happening in our society, the mindsets are different, and then the legislature is coming in to change the laws to make them fit what the new social climate is in the state. So, as I said, that, laws are kind of reflective of what's going on in society, and that is what's going on in society right now. And, the difficulty that you're going to have is I think, with this new law, because the statute didn't define what the parental rights are, there's going to be probably a lot of litigation over those statutes to still determine how much time each parent's going to get, until it kind of smooths out and there's some case law out there that kind of sets forth the precedent as to what those rights entail. So that's what I see happening.
Yeah, and isn't a lot of it based on the financial worksheet too, based on, that I guess that's more monetary, but there's a financial worksheet that says, hey, how much do you earn? What are your bills? Okay, what's the need here? Isn't it that is that still the basis?
Yes. The child support guidelines is still the very basis of how child support is determined, and so it's based upon the net monthly income of both of the parties, and then you factor in whether there's any child care costs, whether there's costs for health insurance and such, and you factor all of that into the guidelines, and you couple that with how many overnight each parent is receiving the child. If you have at least 20% of the overnight, then you, as that parent, are entitled to what's called a substantial time-sharing discount under the statute. So, basically, if you've got, 73 overnights a year, if you have over that, you're going to get a substantial discount in your child support. And if not, then you're going to pay what we call, full boat or full child support without any of the discounts. But yes, it's still based off of those financial affidavits and the support worksheet that's worked up based on those.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I was listening to the news this morning. One of my podcasts that I get my news from, a version of like Daily Wire, but it was talking about this big pharma lawsuit that's gone to the Supreme Court. I want to play this quick clip. I know it's probably not your area of study, but I wanted to just play this while it was topical here. The opioid epidemic was a major issue, still is, of course, with fentanyl coming across, but opioid, Oxycontin, lots of movies on this as well, documentaries, but I want to play this clip and then kind of we'll discuss it.
This case, Harrington versus Purdue Pharma, is specifically dealing with the pharmaceutical company's bankruptcy agreement, correct?
That's right.
So what exactly is the Supreme Court being asked to weigh in on?
So that bankruptcy agreement that you mentioned, Georgia, that totals around $6 billion, and that money would go toward efforts to fight the opioid crisis, and it includes $750 million to compensate victims and their families. But notably, it shields the Sackler family, who are the owners of Purdue, from victims and their families' civil claims. In other words, after this payout, they can't be found personally liable. Early on, the bankruptcy agreement was challenged, but eventually upheld by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. Now, the Biden administration is asking the High Court to overturn that decision, arguing that the agreement is not legal, largely because some of the victims who did not consent to this agreement, they're now banned from suing the Sackler family.
Yeah, so I haven't, of course, studied up on that and seen both sides of this, but I just know that the opioid and the allegations of and why they went into bankruptcy of that company was that they knew this was addictive before they released it. They knew the effects, the potential harming effects that it could have for families and for people that were hooked on this. Essentially, they called it heroin. Some of these different documentaries I've seen. What's your thoughts about that, Millie?
Well, what we're seeing nowadays, I think the trend is has changed a little bit, because what we're seeing nowadays in the news, for the most part, is that the deaths are increasing with the opioid crisis, not so much because of the drug manufacturers, but because of aftermarket conditions. So in other words, people buy them or obtain them, and then they're somehow laced with fentanyl or some other highly toxic, fatal substance, and people are ingesting them unwittingly, thinking that they're purchasing off the street some legitimate pill. And so I think you've got a whole new series of factors that are included, and I'm not sure, I don't see how the drug companies are going to be held liable for these aftermarket practices that are occurring.
Yeah, and I think that's a different issue with the open border, the amount of fentanyl that's coming in and laced on some of the other kind of aftermarket type, or even straight from the cartels. That's an interesting point. Okay, we're talking with Milly Athanason, attorney Milly Athanason here, longtime friend of the Consumer Quarterback Show, personal injury law, family law, divorce situations. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk more about some of the recent updates to the laws, what else is changing, what else the expectations are coming up here, more with attorney Milly Athanason on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Thanks for listening to my daddy's show. Please make sure to send him all of your real estate deals and subscribe to the Consumer Quarterback Show podcast on iTunes and Spotify, or check out our YouTube channel. Have a blessed day.
To get in touch with Brandon, call 727-263-3707. Online at consumerqb.com.
Dennis Prager here for Brandon and Lindsay Rhymes, owners of the Platinum MVP team at Keller Williams. Buying, selling, investing in real estate, their nationwide Keller Williams network makes them the best team to work with. Sellers, have your property featured live on air, creating multiple offers. Buyers, leverage a unique system that gets your offer accepted, never overlooked. Call or text 813-750-0550, 813-750-0550, or consumerqb.com.
I want to give a special thanks to Satellite Phone Store. They just hooked me up with this beautiful satellite phone, and it's a gorgeous phone. It's a great device. It's a safety device as well. Think about it. If you're out on the boat 40, 50 miles out, maybe you're going hunting or you're going hiking in the woods somewhere, you run out of cell phone service, or who knows, maybe a possible terrorist attack. It's not like our politicians aren't entrenched in all this stuff going on overseas, all over the place, all over the world. Could be a terrorist attack. They could attack the power grid. They could attack the cell phones. Who knows what they're going to attack next. Sat123.com/REQB. Sat for satellite, sat123.com/REQB, like real estate quarterback.
You're listening to the consumer quarterback, Brandon Rhymes, cutting through your typical media nonsense and offering you a rational and unbiased perspective on current events and life in Tampa Bay. Online at consumerqb.com.
Great time to get down to the Bilmar Beach Resort if you haven't visited down there lately. It's a good time of year. They're a little bit slower this time of year, and it's a great time. Treasure Island is a great beach, beautiful, beautiful property. Bilmar Beach Resort, the official hotel partner of the Consumer Quarterback Show. Say hello to Clyde Smith. He's the general manager. Give him a call or book directly, BilmarBeachResort.com. All right, attorney Milly Athanason back on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Milly, I wanted to just continue on. I love when you bring these new updates and these changes to the Florida state laws and different statutes.
Oh, well, thank you. I enjoy doing it. It certainly keeps me on my toes as well. So that helps. But one of the things I wanted to bring up, because it's holiday season, and I wanted to talk a little bit about holiday visitation between parents that, get along with with the children.
Yeah, it's a very, very good topic because there's so many times that emotions get involved, and it's going to get back to the children. It's going to really create a bad relationship and bad memories for the kid.
Absolutely, and the holiday seasons always seem to evoke a lot more emotions that come out of parties during this time. We tend to see in this profession a lot of, if you will, emergencies that come up with regard to the exchange of the child and who's going to get to spend Christmas Day and Christmas Eve and so forth. And, my advice is to encourage the parents to try to work together to ensure that the child or the children has some significant time with each of the parents during the holiday season. So what if a child has 2 Christmases? That's good for the child to be able to spend the time with each of his or her parents and enjoy the activities that are each of their households. I mean, unfortunately, divorce is a reality in our society, but you have to keep in mind we're not divorcing our children. We're only divorcing each other, and during the holidays, I think it's great if the parties can work together to ensure that the children are spending some time with each of the parents. Now, granted, there are some there are circumstances, obviously, which may warrant that impossible to accomplish. However, if it's a situation where the parties just don't like each other, they don't get along, they have different value systems, or they grew apart, or whatever the situation is, it doesn't mean that the child shouldn't be allowed to have a really good relationship with each of the parents.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a key element to keep in mind. It's definitely about the children because they are such an impressionable age. And especially these days with all the different things being thrown at them from so many different areas. If you just joined us, we're talking with attorney Milly Athanason. She's a legal analyst here on the Consumer Quarterback Show. We're talking about some of the recent changes and updates to paternity statutes and visitation. So what is the process on something like that, Milly?
Well, right now with the new change in effect that we have to start out with a 50-50 premise, and it's up to the parent that thinks that there shouldn't be equal time sharing. to prove to the court why there shouldn't be equal time sharing. So right there, there's automatically an error that says, look, each parent's entitled to equal time with the minor child. So obviously it's better if you're going to effectuate that type of a schedule for the parents to get along. Now, if the parents are not getting along and they can't agree that today is Tuesday, then, a rotating or equal time sharing schedule may not work for the children because, they may be spending more time arguing about the time sharing than actually enjoying the time sharing. So in a situation like that, a court may very well have to reposition that in order to make it so that the child has somewhat of a normal life under the circumstances. Unfortunately, children become kind of like the message carriers a lot of times back and forth between parents. So it makes it difficult for the children to even enjoy the time sharing because they're kind of in the middle. Sometimes parents try to force children to choose which parent they like best, and they get rewarded if they say something negative about the other parent or something like that. And I really discourage my clients from engaging in that sort of conduct because it teaches the child or the children the wrong message. They should be able to love both of their parents without fear of any backlash.
Yeah, we had a Dr. Scott Anderson on the show. He's a new show partner, and he was talking about the mental health crisis in the country. And he said he attributes a lot of it, or it's one of the biggest challenges, is this epidemic of friend parenting.
Yes.
Wanting to be more of a friend than an actual, parent with discipline. And at times, yes, you have to be authoritative.
Oh, absolutely you do. You can't, they get friends and stuff at school or outside in the neighborhood. It's not really up to the parents to be a friend. You still have to discipline them. You have to teach them right from wrong, or they're not going to know. And the examples that you set are what these children are going to learn and how they're going to function in their adult lives. Because it's not like they go to school and they learn a separate course on how to be a co-parent.
Right.
It doesn't work that way. You learn your parenting skills from what's demonstrated to you at home. So if you're a very lackadaisical parent and you're not instituting any rules or manners or etiquette, or your child's going to grow up accordingly.
Yep, and it's also a shame with the attack on the alpha male in the country. It seems like there's an attack on standing up for masculinity and calling it toxic masculinity. The father is one of the main reasons why you see crime and some of the statistics of especially certain ethnicities more than others, where there's an absence of a father in the household. So I think that's one of the biggest challenges in America right now, is just not having that authority figure in the household and discipline, a lack of discipline. 30 seconds, back to you, Millie.
Yes, so my advice would be to please, make sure that your child or children have some contact with both parents during the holiday season so that they can enjoy the holidays. Try to work it out because it's going to make it easier for the children to enjoy the holidays as well.
Yep, absolutely. And how do you want people to connect with you?
Yes, so it would be www.athanasonlaw.com, or you can call 1-833-ASK-MILLY, MILLY, or 727-376-9100.
All right, 833-ASK-MILLY, attorney Milly Athanason. Always great catching up with you. Appreciate you calling in.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. All right, we're going to take a quick break, come back with Alex Black Belt Lima in studio. Alex Lima in studio with us on the Consumer Quarterback Show. Coming up here, personal development, also safety and self-defense, martial arts, and more coming up here on the Consumer Quarterback Show, consumerqb.com.
Hey, this is Grant Cardone, and you've been listening to the phenomenal Brandon Rhymes, the Consumer Quarterback Show.